drift. It moves me as a weed in a great river. Earth and the great weather move me, have carried me away, and move my inward parts with joy.
In the vast and diverse landscapes of the United States, natural environments and traditional tribal values form timeless interrelationships. Contemporary American Indian people connect with ancestral systems in harmony with the earth and its seasons. Federal land managers can maintain environmental diversity by promoting natural, healthy ecosystems. Where native species and sacred places are accessible for traditional tribal practices, the spirit of the President's executive order protecting Indian sacred sites may be realized. According to the Sacred Sites Order, federal agencies should consider sites to be sacred whenever Indian tribes or Indian traditionalists who represent followers of Indian religions tell federal officials where sacred places are found on non-tribal lands. Landscapes where tribal values and uses are rooted in ancestral traditions and oral histories may be sacred sites. Even today, the occurrence of the religious experiences of American Indian people can sanctify natural landscapes for tribal uses. American Indian religious values often hold that sacredness is embedded in all things of this world: animal, plant, earth, water, sky, sun, moon, stars, fire, lightning, wind, rain. Natural and cultural places of value to tribal religions and essential to the existence of Indian peoples have a sacred nature. In Native American and religious traditions, sacred space can be created, as in Western cultures, or sacredness in the natural world may be revealed to spiritual leaders. Ceremonies are held at sacred places. Especially sacred to tribes are those holy areas where spiritual leaders must retreat to seek power, to remain in touch with sacred forces in the universe, to perform religious rituals essential to the survival of Indian people and the earth. Sacred sites can be ancestral villages, task areas, and the graves of those who came before, trails for travel, trade, and pilgrimages, divine landscapes where spirit beings dwell and where Creator made the world, rock writings giving silent voice to ancient rites. In accordance with tribal customs, sacred elements essential to the continuation of traditional practices may include places where sacred animals live, where raw materials naturally occur, stone for making pipes for religious practices, wild foods, plants for traditional medicines, shells, feathers, and fibers for weaving baskets. Among traditional basket weavers, the materials and the weaver work together, with designs offered in dreams to create a living basket.
Our basket is considered a family because of the way it's woven together and the way we live together and thrive together, so we are like one. Baskets are woven together for that purpose, and our spirits are in it.
Indian people have close relationships with plants. As they are used, plants are given songs and prayers. Plants are enhanced by digging, pruning, and burning by traditional Indians, and in return, there is improved natural diversity for tribal uses. Plants give food, shelter, clothing, medicines, baskets, cordage, and tools. Where combinations of sacred elements are found at one time or place, a connection to the survival of Indian culture and religion is evident. For example, Sacred salmon are harvested religiously by Indian fishermen at special places along great rivers, now as in times past. Daily family life connects sacred elements of the natural environment, as with gathering, basket weaving, and fishing. Many regions hold sacred geographies where several places possess related values as part of a traditional system. For example, mountain highlands are used in summertime by religious leaders to obtain medicine and to replenish spiritual energies. These are vital to the ceremonial activities of Indian tribes that are held at sacred places where rivers meet the ocean every fall, generation after generation. In certain instances, Indian treaties may require that specific natural resources having sacred value be protected as trust resources, potentially also affording protection to sacred geographies, as is the case with salmon fisheries and riparian habitats in the watersheds of the Pacific Northwest. Tribal access to sacred places on non-Indian lands and the freedom to practice revered traditions are essential for the survival of tribal people, giving form and energy to their cultural and spiritual lives. Sacred landscapes may change where natural environments are subject to non-traditional land uses, such as public access, road construction, land transfers, timber sales, mineral and energy developments.
And that time I was asked, one time in particular I was asked by a lady what I thought of the progress when they were dedicating that dam. I thought it was great. You'll get rich and have everything you need. But you are just destroying my way of life. Everything we had is underwater. My home site, fishing sites are gone. Now I don't know what to do, how to get my food anymore. How can I go back tomorrow and have life? You're going to destroy everything.
These and other agency activities can alter the harmony among the land, air, and water, and threaten tribal customs, giving rise to disputes between tribal interests and federal agency land management policies and practices. Federal managers may resolve disputes over Indian sacred lands in many ways. The National Environmental Policy Act provides for tribal involvement throughout the public process of developing agency plans to define and weigh Indian interests for short-term projects or for long-term management plans that balance resource uses with the capacity of the land. The National Historic Preservation Act can be used to manage and preserve traditional cultural properties, places connected with beliefs and practices that maintain the cultural identities of tribal communities. Several Indian sacred sites are already listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Tribes may interact with federal agencies to protect and manage highly valued prehistoric Indian sites and to prosecute crimes against such properties in accordance with the Archaeological Resources Protection Act. Native American burials, the sacred final resting places of Indian people, are managed as directed by the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. The Sacred Sites Executive Order provides a tool to protect American Indian religious traditions. Where Indian tribes identify sacred sites, federal land managers should accommodate access and allow ceremonial uses. Agencies should avoid harming sacred sites in any manner that affects traditional Indian uses. Agency managers should consult with Indian tribes on a government-to-government basis whenever agency authorities and activities might affect Native American uses of sacred sites. There are sacred sites that are not yet identified by tribes. Since sacred sites can be created through traditional religious practices, some may be revealed to tribes in the future. Ongoing consultation with tribes to identify sacred places should be part of agency planning and environmental review procedures. Accommodating tribal access and uses at sacred places is tempered by understanding that Indian tribes and traditionalists have needs for access and use that differ from the needs of the general public. ongoing culturally sensitive consultation with tribes about their needs for access and use of sacred sites, regular reassessment of the effects of management activities on traditional practices at known sacred places, altered vegetation, air and water qualities, noise, viewsheds. In order to protect Indian sacred sites, federal agencies should be responsive to tribal concerns in government-to-government consultations, provide for tribal participation in planning efforts, meet with tribal representatives prior to public forums to identify sacred sites issues and tribal preferences in a confidential manner between governments. The degree to which federal land managers can protect sensitive information from public disclosure will greatly determine the nature and extent of sacred sites tribes will identify for federal agencies. In many tribes, sacred information is by nature secret and inappropriate for discussion. The Sacred Sites Order directs agencies to give tribes notice prior to agency actions, including the development of policy that might affect tribal access to and uses of sacred places. Develop effective protocols, especially through memoranda of understanding with tribes, for government-to-government consultations. Such protocols include points of contact, notification methods, and timeframes. Institute methods to resolve disputes with Indian tribes over sacred sites, including use of traditional tribal approaches such as peacemaker courts. There remain unresolved issues that impede agency management of Indian sacred sites. The Mining Act of 1872 gives managers little discretion in approving mineral exploration or development activities on locatable mining claims, even where sacred sites may be harmed. The Freedom of Information Act greatly constrains the ability of federal agencies to assure Indian tribes that identified sacred sites will remain confidential. Tribal expenses can be excessive for consulting with federal agencies to identify and protect sacred sites. According to policy, in many federal agencies, tribes are not compensated for these costs. Sacred sites consultations may not be effective in some cases. American Indian tribal governments and traditional people will continue to assert the need and right to observe spiritual and religious practices on non-Indian lands in the United States. Federal agencies are obliged to consult with Indian nations when sacred sites are concerned. If, on the other hand, land managers can sustain natural landscapes and maintain ecological diversity, environmental harmony will prevail, tribal spirituality will live, and sacred traditions will flourish. Indian religions and uses of sacred places will continue, generation after generation, for time immemorial.
And that's all we want, is a working relationship with these agencies to continue our way of life. And if we're denied, that's it. That's the end of what we do as protectors of the earth. It's a reason for use by a tribe and people for their cultural existence. And if we are denied these kinds of rights of use, then where will we be?